Now, we've been waiting a long time to hear any news on the contract situations, and unfortunately, now that the news has come, it's not news that Liverpool supporters have particularly wanted to hear. It's emerging that Trent Alexander-Arnold is closing in on a move to Real Madrid on a free transfer this summer. I must stress that no noise is really on the Liverpool side of things. They insist they haven't heard anything at the moment, and the process dictates that Real Madrid would have to inform them, and the player would, when a deal is agreed, and there's been nothing of the sort in terms of that coming out so far from their side of things. But it does look like a formality, doesn't it? There's too much going on, too many noises from the Madrid side of things that make you think that this looks basically a formality, and that Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to go out and try that new experience and move to Madrid this summer. Now, done a lot of discussion on the whys, who's to blame already. I've looked at this on my Substack. It's davidlynch.lfc.co.uk. If you want to check that one out, that is actually a free piece as well if you want to kind of sample what you would get by being a subscriber. So I do urge you to check that out, a real forensic look at why this has happened really and who is to blame. But I've also spoken to Anfield Index as well, and again I would urge you to listen to that podcast, a bit more detail in that, talking about FSG's role, the sporting director's role, and of course Trent himself, his role in this all coming to pass. So I would urge you to read that and listen to the podcast as well to get a bit more detail on the reasons behind it all. But the fact is, Liverpool now have to confront this reality. I mean, I did a video quite recently talking about their summer plans and how important the contracts were to deciding exactly what those summer plans will look like. Well, we already know now at this point, regardless of what happens with Salah and Van Dijk, that Liverpool are definitely going to need a right back. So that is one of the things that has definitely changed with this news coming around. And because of that, I start to consider, and I'm sure Richard Hughes has already considered, what exactly is that business going to look like for Liverpool, and what can they do at right back to mitigate for loss of such a hugely influential player in Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I wanted to have a quick kind of look ahead to that, not necessarily picking out particular players who Liverpool might be signing, but talking about exactly what they are losing in Trent Alexander-Arnold, how they should go about replacing the qualities he brings to the team. Now, it feels like a good starting point in terms of talking about this, really, to talk about Conor Bradley. I want to say to start off really that I think he is definitely good enough to play for Liverpool. He's clearly a very, very different player to Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's a more orthodox right back, isn't he? But if he can get over his injuries that he's had this season, it's been a bit of an injury hit period for him, but if he can get past that, then for me there's 100% a player who is good enough to be Liverpool's right back, albeit playing it in a completely different way. Although, of course, we must say about Trent that there's nobody really out there who does play it that way, so that's something that Liverpool are going to have to adapt to, is not having him there. And like I say, I think Bradley is good enough to step up. I mean, look at that Real Madrid game near the start of the season when he came in there, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. You don't come up against a higher quality of opposition than Real Madrid, and I think he showed in that game he is of this level. He can compete for Champions Leagues, he can compete for Premier Leagues, so I do think he's ready. But I clearly think, of course, not just because of his injury record, but you can't go into a season with one right back, can you? Clearly Liverpool are going to have to sign another right back. Now, whether that is a backup right back or is it someone that Conor Bradley can be behind again for another couple of years or not, we'll have to see. Obviously, maybe Arne Slot sees it differently to me, doesn't think Conor Bradley's ready. Maybe they think that the injuries are a bit of a concern, so they might go down the route of signing someone who's definitely ready to start games for Liverpool, which is, of course, an absolutely fine way to see it. But of course, who that right back is, what kind of qualities they bring to the table, and what kind of qualities you need across the team to replace Trent, they are all in play regardless of whether that right back is coming in to be a genuine starter or whether they're coming in to back up Conor Bradley. These are all considerations. Now, as I say, Trent Alexander-Arnold is completely unique, and that is a big part of what Liverpool is going to influence what Liverpool are looking for when they go into this market. I mean, you can get into debate about his defensive qualities. I often have on this channel in the comment section. A lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about that. My personal take has always been really that Trent is never quite as bad in the defensive aspect to the game has been made out really by some of the pundits and people who watch the games. But every single manager, even if you think he's terrible, has figured that the quality that he's got and the other aspects of his game that he brings are worth the trade-off of him not being defensively perfect. And that is, I'm talking about, of course, Jurgen Klopp and Arne Slot. They're going to be Liverpool's only two Premier League winning managers. Both of them have figured that even if Trent does have weaknesses in the defensive game. The trade-offs are worth it, and you need to get him in your starting 11. And the reasons for that, the reasons that the trade-offs are worth it, is because he's an absolute monster at getting the ball into dangerous areas of the pitch for Liverpool. Now, even if he's not as much of an assist machine as he was earlier in his career, his role has slightly changed. He's still hugely important in terms of getting the ball into dangerous areas, maybe being the pass before the assist, or just getting Liverpool on the attack when they're in a defensive situation. He's so important to that. And the area you can kind of see that in terms of his importance in moving the ball forward is his progressive passes. Now, before I talk about this, I just want to give you a quick definition of this. This is from the Y-Scout glossary that gives you an idea of exactly what a progressive pass is, and I'll read it verbatim. It says, a pass is considered progressive if the distance between the starting point and the next touch is at least 30 metres closer to the opponent's goal if its starting and finishing points are within the team's own half, 15 metres closer to the opponent's goal if the starting and finishing points are in different halves, and 10 metres closer to the opponent's goal if the starting and finishing points are in the opponent's half. So it's basically someone who consistently, whatever part of the pitch they're in, is moving the ball decent distances to get the ball closer to the opposition goal and creating dangerous situations through that. Now, if you have a look at European football's top 5 leagues, now that is the Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A and Ligue 1 at the moment. Now, you look at the progressive passes in those leagues and you look at this season now, incredibly, Trent Alexander-Arnold ranks 11th out of all players this season in all of those leagues for the amount of progressive passes that he's clocked up. Now, that's not a volume, or it is a volume statistic, sorry. So I've not even filtered that out as per 90 minutes or anything like that. And so when you consider that Trent has actually missed a few games through injury this season, that is actually even more incredible, really. But the maddest thing about it all, really, is that, okay, Trent is 11th there. You've got Josko Gvardiol from Manchester City, who's 10th. And then you look at the rest of the list, and it's just midfielders in the top part of the list, and then you go further down, it's centre-backs who, again, they've got further distances that they can spray the ball, and we all know about ball-playing centre-backs. And you just keep going, it's midfielders, centre-halves, midfielders, all the way down the list, until then you get to Achraf Hakimi, who, of course, plays for Paris Saint-Germain, is a right-back, is a full-back, and he is in 51st place. Now, an honourable mention also to Andy Robertson, who's actually in 53rd by this measure for most progressive passes this season. But it just shows you there, apart from Josko Gvardiol and Trent Alexander-Arnold, pretty much no one in European football at the moment is doing what they are doing from fullback in terms of getting the ball into dangerous areas. It just shows you how special Trent Alexander-Arnold is. And he's also 6th in all of the top 5 leagues for passes into the penalty area. And again, this is just a statistic that is dominated by midfielders. You look at Michael Olise is top. Obviously, he's a winger. You've got Odegaard in the top 10. You've got Bruno Fernandes in 13th. So it's creative types, creative midfielders, wingers. These are the players that are making passes into the penalty area. But again, Trent is 6th out of all the players in the top 5 leagues for that this season, and he has missed a few games. So it just shows you his importance there in terms of getting that ball forward for Liverpool and making sure that they can mount attacks. He's utterly crucial to that, and in a way that very, very few fullbacks, I mean, like I said, Hakimi down in 51st for that statistics, very few fullbacks are able to replicate that. Well, nobody really gets close to that apart from Gvardiol, and of course his statistics slightly boosted by the fact that City are this possession dominated team, although he's also a fabulous player. But it just shows you how good Trent Alexander-Arnold is. Now, you might ask, okay, why is that important? How does that manifest itself in the game? Why is that really a vital thing for Liverpool that they need to replace? And I think the best example I can think of, really, to show why this is important is maybe Liverpool's trip to Everton this season. Now, of course, it was a 2-2 draw, disappointing result for Liverpool. Arne Slot not particularly happy at full-time, ranting at the referee, and Liverpool really a largely terrible performance, which is what I said in my post-match video if you want to go back and have a look at that one. But it's worth mentioning that there's a very small period of time in this game where Liverpool actually played some football, and for me it was when Trent Alexander-Arnold came on in the 29th minute. You may remember that he wasn't fit enough to start this one. Conor Bradley started, Liverpool were terrible, and then Trent came on, and Liverpool did actually start to play football. There were only 29 minutes remaining of the game when he came on, but he was so influential in that. And to just underline just how important he is in terms of that, he had the most passes into the final third of any player on the pitch come full time in that game. Now, he played 29 minutes. You had several players who played 90 minutes, had the opportunity to put more passes into the final third. And he managed more than anybody else with 15. And you could see it. He just started. He got Liverpool playing. He got the ball. Everton were finding it so easy prior to that to push on to Gravenberch, to push on to McAllister, to make sure that Liverpool's only way of progressing the ball was kind of long balls from Virgil van Dijk, which they were just sweeping up with ease because they are such a big and physical side. So, when you mark your two deepest midfielders there, how are you going to get the ball forward? Well, okay, we'll just slip it to our right back, who is one of the best passers in world football, and he can do it for us. And he's almost a kind of cheat code in these situations, and he showed it. Everton couldn't get close to him in the final half an hour of that game, and all of a sudden Liverpool started playing, albeit not fantastically well, but slightly better. And he was just clocking up these passes into the final third, getting them into positions that he couldn't get into before he came on the pitch. And again, just shows you how important he is. And I think, Everton away, a very, very good example of that. But I would also say, similar example is Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final, actually. I think, obviously Jarell Quansah being at right back makes things very difficult for you. He isn't someone who progresses the ball with his passing, and I think, Liverpool would have been better had Conor Bradley been there, because albeit he's not Trent's style of passing or ability in terms of his passing, he is better at getting the ball forward, maybe through his carries. But I still think it really underlined how different things could have been for Liverpool had Trent Alexander-Arnold been fit for that one, because all Newcastle did is exactly what Everton did. Press onto your two deepest midfielders, make sure that they're the ones who can't progress the ball. Ball gets cycled back to Virgil van Dijk, he goes long, their big physical defenders eat it up, and Newcastle have got possession again. And that just happened over and over and over. And as I was watching that game at Wembley, I just thought Trent Alexander-Arnold could have made such a big difference for Liverpool, because again, how do you press onto him when he's out in that space? He can drift, he can come into central areas and pass the ball from there. He can just move it forward from his traditional right back role. He is so important for Liverpool in terms of progressing the ball, and massively important in those games where teams try to press onto them, to trying to push on to the two deepest midfielders and make it difficult for them to move the ball. So he's just huge for this. If you want to get the ball from back to front, you need Trent Alexander-Arnold in your Liverpool team at the moment. So the question, of course, for Liverpool then is, how do you solve this issue? If he's not going to be there next season, teams are still going to push onto your deepest midfielders. What do you do? How do you solve this? How do you get the ball forward? Now, I mentioned that nobody else really in Europe's top 5 leagues is doing what Trent Alexander-Arnold is doing at right back. So the idea that you can go out there and sign someone else who can do this, we need to get it out of our heads now, because that player does not exist, and you aren't going to be able to get them even if you did. So unfortunately, you're not going to find a Trent Alexander-Arnold regen anywhere out there in Europe's top 5 leagues at the moment. But it just kind of reminded me really of anyone who's seen Moneyball, the great film about the Oakland A's and their journey through analytics and turning them into a kind of serious baseball team. Brad Pitt is in it. If you haven't seen it, it really is a fantastic film. But there's a line in there that I really like, and I always come back to it. And it's Billy Bean, who is Brad Pitt's character, is talking about the loss of a really important player, Jason Giambi, and the fact that they can't really account for that. He's too good, he's too unique, they can't bring his skills in for another player, or if they found someone who could, they wouldn't be able to afford them. So what do you do? And he says, we have to recreate him in the aggregate. And I think that is really what Liverpool have got to do about Trent Alexander-Arnold coming into this summer. They cannot find another Trent Alexander-Arnold. Like I said, it'd be too expensive if they did exist, and they don't exist. Therefore, it's all about how can you replace his skills in some way and bring that to the team. Now, I spoke in my video about the summer and the plans there, really, about Ryan Gravenberch's role, and I think he kind of comes into this. I spoke about the fact that he's so important to the team at the moment. Do you really sign someone who can compete with him? Is that realistic? Or are you better getting someone who's multifunctional, can play as an 8, can play as a 6, and then they can get minutes not only in Gravenberch's position, but maybe elsewhere? And I thought a really good point made a couple of times in the comments was that, well, actually Gravenberch can play in the 8 as well as playing in the 6. So maybe he becomes your multifunctional player in that situation, and the person you sign is a bit more of an orthodox 6. And if you do that, I actually think it makes even more sense maybe to approach it in that way going into this summer, because what you could get from the player you do sign. If they are more of a six, they're definitely kind of a deep lying midfielder, and that is going to be their nailed on role in this team rather than moving them around. Then maybe you can get someone who is really capable in terms of passing the ball from deep positions, moving it into the final third. There are a lot more midfielders who are doing that, as I said, in that list, who are able to progress the ball. And if they come and there's someone who is press resistant as well, is able to take the ball from the centre halves but feels comfortable in doing it, and then they can progress the ball, then that really negates the tactic that we've seen a lot from the opposition this season of pushing onto those two deep midfielders and making it impossible for them to turn out. If you get someone who's just got that little bit of extra ability to turn away from pressure and move the ball as well, then that solves a couple of issues for you, and it makes it difficult for next time you go to Everton away next season, next time you come up against Newcastle, for them to completely destroy your ability to progress the ball just by pressing onto your midfielders. So I think that is something worth thinking about, and maybe something Richard Hughes will consider. Can I get more passes from my midfield if I can't get them from right back? And of course, you can also get progression from other parts of the pitch. It doesn't necessarily have to be midfield. I mean, I was looking at Andy Robertson and what he does at left back and what he has done in the past. We know that left back is an area Liverpool are going to look at this summer. So can they get some progression from there that they maybe have lost in recent seasons and that they will lose with Trent Alexander-Arnold moving on? For example, Robertson at his peak under Jurgen Klopp in the 1920 season averaged 4.31 progressive carries per 90 minutes. Now that is down to 2.41 per 90 this season. So again, there's a loss of some carry and some ability to progress the ball. Can you get that back in there next season with, say, signing a Milos Kerkez? Or can you get a left back who, can't progress the ball in terms of passing as well as Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, but can just negate some of that and give you some progressive passes, give you some progressive carries, and just find other ways to get the ball up the pitch? Can you even go as far as to say, okay, well, another way that we can progress the ball in those situations is to have a bit of a target man up front? Is that something that Liverpool can target? That, okay, in those situations, we're not going to have this cheat code at right back, but we can just empty the ball, and we're going to have someone who can scrap and win the ball in the way that maybe Sadio Mane was very good at, the way that Roberto Firmino was very good at. It's something I don't think Liverpool's current collection of forwards are very good at the moment, but can that change this summer, and is that another consideration? As I say, these are all these issues have got to come together. These are things that I think Liverpool have really got to think about this summer, because the one thing that Trent Alexander-Arnold brings to the table more than anything else is progressing the ball, and Liverpool have to find a way, whether that's recreating it in the aggregate or picking out a play from somewhere that we don't even know about who can do what Trent can do. They have to find a way of replacing those qualities, because, as I say, it looks to me, looking at Europe's top 5 leagues, that he is pretty unique, and it's going to be difficult to find a right back who does that. So can they get that progression from elsewhere? We will have to see. Now, do let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. Like I said, obvious disappointment, I imagine, about Trent Alexander-Arnold and the news that's come out. But how do you think Liverpool should go about replacing him? Let me know any players you think would be good to come in, not just at right back, but maybe at left back to help Liverpool progress the ball. Maybe central midfielders you think could help this problem. I'm really interested to know what you guys think, because I'm not a scout. I never say that I am, but I do like to look at the numbers to see if anyone stands out. There's no one there for me at right back really who stands out, but maybe you've seen a midfielder you think can solve this problem. Do let me know in the comments. And as usual, if you can like and subscribe, it's always massively appreciated. We are getting closer to the football actually coming back soon, aren't we? So it'll be build up to Everton soon. Very much looking forward to that and getting all this news out of the system, and hopefully seeing Liverpool start that march to the Premier League title. But until then, I'll see you guys very soon.